We all think helping is always the right thing to do, right? I mean, it's just what you do. But what if it isn't? In this explainer, we're going to dive into a pretty challenging idea from a biblical perspective, the wisdom of saying no. And more importantly, why sometimes holding back is actually the most loving thing you can do. And man, this question, it really hits home, doesn't it? We've all been there. You pour your time, your energy, your resources into someone, and you just see nothing change. Today, we're going to unpack that razor-thin line between being a true blessing and accidentally becoming an enabler, all based on the insights from our source material. So here's our game plan. First, we'll get into the main idea, the wisdom of saying no. Then we're going to walk through several distinct types of people that the source says you should be wary of helping. And we'll wrap it all up with the biggest takeaway, how to help with discernment. All right, so what's the big idea here? It's actually pretty simple. That desire we have to help people, that's a good thing, but it needs a guide. This is all about shifting gears from a purely emotional, knee-jerk reaction to a thoughtful, wise, and discerning response. And this verse from Proverbs, it's really the bedrock of this whole perspective. The source holds up godly wisdom as the essential filter for everything we do, especially when it comes to helping others. The point isn't just to react, but to actually understand what's going on first. Okay, so what does this actually look like in real life? Well, the source points out two profiles to watch for right off the bat, the lazy and the ungrateful. And what they both have in common is a pattern of taking without any real intention of growing or giving back. Now, the source is really specific about this. This isn't about someone who's just hit a rough patch or is having a tough time. Laziness, in this context, is defined as a consistent choice, a habit of ducking responsibility that in the end just leads to self-sabotage. And this distinction is absolutely critical. The source isn't talking about people who genuinely can't work, someone going through a tough season. The focus is squarely on the mindset of those who will not work, people who actively turn down opportunities and show a clear pattern of avoidance. And this is the verse the source points to as the biblical justification for this approach. It's not framed as some cruel command, but more as a principle of what you could call divine accountability. The idea is that if you're always rescuing someone from the consequences of not working, you're actually robbing them of the very lesson that might push them to finally change. All right, next up, the ungrateful person. And this goes way beyond just bad manners. According to the source, a chronic lack of gratitude, a constant sense of entitlement, it points to a much deeper issue. It's that mindset that makes any help you offer feel like you're just pouring water into a bottomless pit. Let's move on to the next pair. These two profiles focus on really deep-seated character flaws. According to the source, things like pride and wickedness create this kind of impenetrable wall that makes any attempt to help totally useless. The logic here is, well, it's pretty simple, but also really powerful. You can't help someone who doesn't think they need help. The proud person, as defined by the source, is so full of themselves, so wise in their own eyes, that they just shut down any advice, basically slamming the door on anyone who tries to guide them. Now this verse, it really raises the stakes. It's suggesting that pride doesn't just cause problems with other people, it puts a person in direct opposition to God himself. And from that viewpoint, any help we could offer is basically futile until that person chooses to humble themselves. And again, the source draws a really sharp line here. This isn't about someone who just messes up or struggles. The wicked, as they're defined here, is someone who actively celebrates, defends, and promotes a destructive lifestyle. The argument is, if you help them, you actually risk becoming part of their rebellion. All right, our next group of archetypes, they're all defined by their rejection of truth. One just ignores wisdom over and over again, while the other actively uses deception to get what they want. So when we talk about foolishness here, it's crucial to get this right. It has nothing to do with IQ. Someone can be brilliant and still be a fool if they just refuse to learn from their mistakes. They're just stuck in this self-destructive loop no matter how much help you throw at them. And wow, this proverb, it does not pull any punches, does it? But that graphic image, it perfectly captures the absolute frustration of that situation, of helping someone clean up a huge mess, only to watch them turn around and do the exact same thing all over again. Now, this next one is a little different. They aren't just unwise, they are actively trying to deceive you. The source warns that these individuals see a kind heart not as a gift, but as a golden opportunity to exploit. They'll use guilt, flattery, stories that don't quite add up, whatever it takes to get what they want. And this brings us to the final and maybe the most serious archetype that the source identifies, the unrepentant person. This isn't someone who's just confused or made a mistake. No, this is someone who knows the truth, but has made a conscious, deliberate choice to reject it. According to the source material, this is basically the final line in the sand. An unrepentant person has been shown the right way, but they deliberately choose the wrong one. From this perspective, continuing to bail them out financially or rescue them from consequences is actually enabling their rebellion. It's preventing the very crisis that might finally make them change. So after going through all these really tough profiles, what are we supposed to take away from all this? Well, the source boils it all down to one central idea: the absolute need for discernment. Look, at the end of the day, this whole perspective isn't about becoming cold-hearted or uncharitable. It's about becoming a wise steward of your resources, your time, your money, your emotional energy. The whole goal is to invest in good ground, places where there's actual potential for growth, and to learn the difference between truly blessing someone and just enabling their destructive habits. And so the explainer leaves us with this one last question, and it's a really personal and provocative one. It challenges all of us to look at our own lives and our own relationships through this lens of discernment. It is a tough question, for sure, but it's one that gets right to the heart of what it means to help wisely.